The children were all amazed at what he said. His stories of flying the Russian Sukhoi 15 fighter, twice the speed of sound, some 60,000 feet above the earth, soaring high into the clouds, where you can see the blue curve of the earth below and the velvet blackness of space above. But the students were most impressed by his words about working for world peace. This pilot challenged those young people in the elementary school to work hard for peace in the world. Yes, Major Gennady Osipovich, Soviet Air Force pilot, made a big impression on those children. And on that morning of September 1st, 1983, no one could have predicted the events that would unfold in the next few hours. Events that would bring the world to the edge of war. Not since the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1960 would the world be so close to a nuclear war. How did he come to be at the school in that morning? Major Osipovich normally flew the daytime missions along the eastern border of the Soviet Union. But the day before, he had asked his commander to change his flight schedule. He asked to fly the night patrol so he would be free to speak at his son's school in the morning. His commander agreed and let him change his flight plan. And that is the reason why on the night of September 1st, he was patrolling an area out over the Kamchatka Peninsula, north of Korea, Japan. On that critical night, Korean passenger airplane 007 was off course, and it had strayed into Soviet airspace. It was picked up on the major's radar. He radioed the base for instructions. Air Defense Headquarters wrongly identified the passenger jet as an American RC-135 spy plane. Headquarters gave him authorization to fire. He fired the first air missile. It hit the plane, but miraculously, it didn't bring it down. The Korean pilot struggled valiantly and regained control of the plane and leveled off at 5,000 feet, and then looked desperately for a place to land. And then the major fired his second missile. And so it was that this man who just hours before was encouraging children to work for world peace, that very same man took the lives of 240 people. What we say does matter, but what we actually do matters so much more. The old proverb is still true today. Actions speak louder than words. We're going to go over a couple of verses that Moses covered last week, verses 16, 17, 18, because in this passage, there's a repeating refrain. 2 weeks ago, Randy challenged us. He said that the way we live reveals who our real Father is, whether God or the devil. Randy said it is our daily manner of life which really matters. Last week, Moses shared with us the 3 types of love, and he gave us some very practical steps to show real love. First, to put off the old nature. Second, don't let the sun go down on your anger. And third, be kind and forgiving to one another. John begins this chapter declaring the incredible truth that we are, in fact, the children of God. And in the second half of this chapter, he unfolds what that means. And you'll see there's a refrain that repeats in this chapter from verse 16 down to verse 24. By this we know, by this we know, by this we know. What is the key saying here essentially? He's saying that God's children should act in love, they should act in truth, and they should act in obedience. Because it is by these things that we are truly known as the children of God. By this we know love. Verse 16. Again, by this we know love. The verb that he uses here is a perfect active. What does that mean? Well, it means our knowledge now today is based on something that happened in the past. And the thing that happened in the past was he laid down his life for us. And the effects of that sacrifice transfer into our present day. By this we know what love is. Love is one of those words. It's like a rubber band. It's elastic. It means everything and nothing. I love hot dogs. I love football. I love TV. I love my mother and father. I love my cat. I love my dog. But Jesus showed us what real love is. He gave us the definition. We know. Jesus demonstrated in his selfless act what real love is. And then again in verse 19, John uses a future middle verb. We will know. What is it that we will know? We will know that we are of the truth, that we are truly the children of God. And then in verse 24, he uses a present verb. We now know in this moment that God is with us by the Spirit he has given us. John is saying here what he, later in this same epistle, he will say in chapter 4, verse 10, not that we love God, but that he loved us and sent his Son to be the propitiation for our sins. This very one laid down his life in behalf of us. He laid down his life in behalf of us. John 10:11 is another expression of this same idea. Jesus said, the good shepherd lays down his life to the sheep. Now the people who originally heard that would be shocked by that statement, because normally a shepherd lives off the sheep. The shepherd sells their wool. He slaughters some of the sheep and eats the meat. But the good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. And so God's children should follow that example. That's what he says. We ought to lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters. That's what Jesus expressed in John 15:13, where he said, greater love has no one than this, than he lay down his life for his friends. And Paul echoes that same thought in the book of Romans in chapter 5. For while we were still helpless, at the right time, Christ died for the ungodly. For one will hardly die for a righteous man, though perhaps for a good man someone would dare even to die. But God demonstrated, he showed, he acted, he demonstrated his love towards us. And while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Now, John doesn't leave us up there in the theological realms. He immediately applies this to where we live. Verse 17. But if anyone has this world's goods and sees his brother in need, yet closes his heart against him, how does God's love abide in him? John gives us a very practical application of this principle. Whoever has this world's goods and sees his brother in need. This world's goods, this word is the word we get our word biology from. It's bios. It means the things that we need for life every day. Food and clothing and shelter. He says, whoever has those things and sees his brother in need and then closes his heart, he asks the question, how does the love of God abide in him? The word for see here is the word that's associated with being a spectator, observing something, seeing something. And he closes his heart. It's a great contrast, isn't it? Jesus gave us a beautiful illustration of what this looks like in the parable of the Good Samaritan in Luke chapter 10. The lawyer said, well, who's my neighbor? And Jesus said, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among robbers. And they stripped him and beat him, and he went away leaving him half dead. And by chance, a priest, one of God's people, was going down on that road. And he saw him, and he passed by on the other side. Likewise, a Levite, one of God's people, when he came to the place, he saw him. He passed by on the other side. And John asked the question, how can the love of God stay in such a heart? The plain truth is, we're all on the road of life. We're all going down this road of life. And every single day, we have choices to make. Choices to be like the priest and the Levite, or to be like the Good Samaritan. To be someone who shows the love of God, or someone who just walks on. When I was in the Air Force in Plattsburgh, New York, we lived in a big old house. It was an old Victorian mansion. There were many apartments in it. I lived there with a group of Christian brothers. We all went to the same church. We were good Christians. We were people who helped out at church. We taught Sunday school. We were good Christians. We lived on the third floor of the house, and on the first floor of that house, there was a lady. This whole house had a big porch on it. This lady lived in the first floor apartment, and she spent all her days sitting on the front porch smoking cigarettes, one after the other. This lady had a large birthmark that covered half her face. She never talked to anybody very much. And I must have passed that lady 100 times, but I never invited her to church. I never talked to her about Jesus. I never asked her, how are you doing? You see, I was like the Levite. I just walked on by. One day we arrived home, and there was an ambulance in the driveway. They were taking that woman out on a stretcher. We found out later that she had tried to commit suicide. We never saw her again. Jesus said, how can the love of God abide in such a heart? If we don't show love, how can his love abide in us? We are called to be more than mere spectators in this life. We are called to lay down our lives like he did. Little children, John says in verse 18, let us not love in word or in tongue, but in deed and in truth. 7 times in this epistle, he says, little children, little children. It's a term of endearment because he wants his hearers to truly be the children of God. He pleads with them now this 5th time, be the children of God. Let your love be in deed and in truth, in action. This word for deed is the word we get our word energy from. In action and in truth, according to the need of the situation, because every situation is different. John says, little children, and we are in fact God's children. Love not in words only, but in deed and in truth. I just shared you a bad example from my life. I'll share with you a positive example from a little girl named Brittany Nordemeyer. She lives in South Dakota. She's only 8 years old. She was only 8 years old in 2005. But she heard about the people that were damaged by Hurricane Katrina. She heard about the children that lost their homes and all their possessions. Brittany had just lost one of her teeth, and she decided in her own heart to show the love of God. She said, I will send the money the tooth fairy gives me to the Red Cross to help the people. But instead of waiting for the money from the tooth fairy, she put her tooth in an envelope and sent it to the Red Cross. Can you imagine the person in the Red Cross office who got that? She also included a letter which said that she was confident that when the tooth fairy delivered the money, he would bring it to the Red Cross. Crazy idea. But of course, she was just a little kid with the love of God in her heart. When the story got out about Britain's act of love, the Red Cross received a $500 donation from an anonymous donor, someone who had heard the story and wanted to provide a fairy tale ending. Church, God is very creative. There are literally millions and millions and millions of ways for him to show his love through his people to a hurting world. This has always been what God wanted for his people. All the way back in Deuteronomy 15. If there is a poor man with you, one of your brothers, in any of your towns, in your land, which the Lord your God has given you, you shall not harden your heart, nor close your hand from your poor brother. You shall generously give to him, and your heart shall not be grieved when you give to him. Because for this thing, the Lord your God will bless you in all the work of your hands. Do we get the picture? God giving you the land. Now be sure to give to your brothers in need. By this we know the love of God, by what he did. By this we know that we are of the truth. Verse 19. Loving in deed and in truth produces knowledge. Love is a very fruitful thing. It bears fruit. Love bears all kinds of fruit, church. It bears the fruit of knowledge. What is it that springs from our deeds of love? Knowledge. Knowledge that when we act in love, it's proof to us and to an unbelieving world that we truly are the children of God. Love produces the fruit of confidence and answered prayer. We will know. That's what he says here. We will know. Whenever we act in real love, we are obeying one of his truths. And the result of obeying is knowledge. We will know we belong to the realm of truth. In Matthew chapter 5, didn't Jesus say that same kind of a thing in the great Sermon on the Mount? Jesus said, let your light shine before men in such a way that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. And our hearts will be assured, he says, before him, because we're acting in the truth. Our hearts will be confident before him. Confidence flows out of loving action. And yet, there are times when our hearts condemn us. For whenever our hearts condemn us, he says, God is greater than our hearts, and he knows everything. God is greater than all. I don't know about you, but sometimes my heart condemns me. There are two good reasons for letting God be the judge of our lives. First, he's better at judging our hearts than we are. And second, God knows all the facts of your life and my life. He knows all the circumstances that we are involved in. He knows what our bank account says. He knows what our education level is. He knows our address. He knows our telephone number. God knows everything that can be known about us, and he even knows the things that we don't know about our own selves. When we judge ourselves or condemn ourselves, we either are too easy on ourselves or we're too hard. Both ways of judging are wrong. Who in this place this morning has not felt condemned in their heart at some time or other? You know what I mean. You just brought a pizza home from dinner, piping hot pepperoni, sausage, whatever you like on it. You put it down on the counter, your family's ready to eat, and somebody turns on the TV, and there's a commercial for donations to feed the children. We see these pictures of starving children in far-off lands. We look at the TV, we look at the pizza. How do we feel? What do? Shut the TV off? Change the channel? Sometimes we feel condemned. Perhaps we should feel condemned if we have done nothing to help the hungry in this world. If we haven't obeyed the command to love in deed and in truth, then maybe we should feel condemned. But what if we have given to the poor? What if we are regularly involved in helping the poor? And our hearts still condemn us. What can we do then? John says God is greater than our hearts. He's greater than our ability to judge ourselves. We always need to do two things. First, we need to always take seriously the command to love in deed and in truth. And second, we need to let God be the judge of how well we have obeyed that command. Paul even addresses the same dilemma in 1 Corinthians chapter 4, where he says, "But to me it is a very small thing that I should be examined by you. I don't even examine myself. The one who examines me is the Lord. Therefore do not go on passing judgment before the time, but wait until the Lord comes, who will bring to light the things hidden in the darkness and disclose the motives of men's hearts. People do good works for many reasons. Sometimes to get a plaque in a building or get a statue built. God knows the motives of our hearts. Then each man's praise will come to him from God after God judges his acts. And if our heart does not condemn us, he says, we have boldness. We have boldness. We are bold. And when you're bold, you are willing to ask God for things. Boldness encourages us to pray and to ask for things in prayer. And this acting in love produces the fruit of answered prayer, the fruit of boldness. We are responding to what God has commanded us to do, and so we ask for him. We have a sense of boldness. When we have confidence before God, we are encouraged to ask things from God in prayer. We have the expectation that God hears us and he will actually answer us. So we step out in faith. What does that confidence look like in real life? Missionary Bruce Wilkerson tells us about a lady in Swaziland, a grandmother. She's taking care of 56 orphans. His group, missions group, went to Swaziland to help people plant vegetable gardens. help them have a way of sustaining their lives. He came, they were there for many days, and on the last day of their visit, distributing these plants, they came upon the grandmother's village. They saw her tiny home. Their tiny home was surrounded by these kids. The volunteers noticed something else that was very weird. All around this little mud hut, there were little rows of holes in the ground, like someone was planting a garden. Everywhere they looked, there were little garden plots, but no plants. They asked the grandmother about it, and she said, well, my children questioned it. They wondered about it. They said, Grandma, we have no seeds. We have no money to buy plants. She said, last night I talked to God. I prayed, asked him to send people to help us plant gardens. We must be ready when they come. The next day, the volunteers appeared with hundreds of plants ready to plant seedlings. The faithful grandmother was confident in her God. Are we the children of God? Do we act on the truth? Do we experience these wonderful fruits from love, of knowledge and confidence and answered prayer? Do we feel condemned before him today? Are we experiencing answers to prayer? Lastly, by this we will know, we know he abides with us. You see, John returns again to verse 16. He returns to this idea that he laid down his life for us, so we should do likewise. This is his commandment, that we would believe on Jesus Christ whom he has sent and love one another. He repeats this idea. What did Jesus say to the great teacher of the law? The teacher challenged Jesus in Matthew chapter 22, and he said, what is the greatest commandment of the law? And he said to him, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the greatest and foremost commandment. The second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments depend the whole law and the prophets. Christianity is not complicated. Christianity can be reduced to two basic things, two basic principles of life. Believe and love. Believe in God, show love to others. Living by just these two principles, we can change the world. The disciples did in the first century. What does loving one's neighbor look like? Again, a practical example. A local pastor received this, shares a story about a man in his congregation who didn't believe in God. He had a man in his congregation that had a neighbor who didn't believe in God. And the Christian was kind to his neighbor, helped his neighbor, but the man didn't want anything to do with spiritual things until his wife was stricken with cancer. She died 3 months later. And this man, who never wanted to know anything about God, he wrote this letter to the pastor. He said, after the funeral, I was in total despair. I went through the funeral preparations and the service like I was in a trance. After the service, I went to the path along the river because there was a great river behind his house. And I walked all night. But I didn't walk alone. My neighbor, the Christian, was afraid for me. So he stayed with me the whole night. He didn't speak to me. He didn't even walk beside me. He just followed me along the river. When the sun finally came up, he came over and said, let's get some breakfast. The man wrote and said, I go to his church now. A religion that can produce that kind of caring and love that my neighbor showed me is something I want to find out more about. I want to love and be loved like that the rest of my life. By this we know he abides with us, by the Spirit he's given to us. Every single person in this place is a helper that goes with you everywhere you go. He's there to help you in this thing of showing the love of God. Jesus said in John chapter 14, I will ask the Father, and he will give you another helper, that he may be with you forever. That is the Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive because it does not see him or know him. but you know him because he abides with you and will be in you. In Romans 8, the Spirit itself bears witness with our spirit that we are the children of God. Does the Holy Spirit bear witness with our hearts this morning that God is really with us? That God is in this place? Or do we feel far from God? We don't have to. We are the children of God when we act in love. We are the children of God when we act in truth. We are the children of God when we obey his commands. On November 16, 1959, The Sound of Music began in New York City on Broadway. Rodgers and Hammerstein's great musical ran for 3.5 years. Weeks before the show opened, Oscar Hammerstein was diagnosed with stomach cancer. Before his surgery, he sent a little note to Mary Martin, who was playing the lead as Maria von Trapp. He wrote a little note to her and he said, "A bell is not a bell till you ring it. A song is not a song till you sing it. Love in your heart isn't put there to stay. Love isn't love until you give it away." Today, may we give away the love of God that's in our hearts.